Last week, the European Central Bank and the Bank of Canada started to cut interest rates, and this week we are expecting the Federal Reserve Bank to make their own decisions when it comes to their policy rates as well. I believe strongly that the fundamentals is what actually gives us the overall direction of the market. In this video, I am going to give you some of the basic fundamental data that you are going to consider as you will be taking your trades for the week. If you are a returning subscriber, I'm really grateful that you come back to this channel, and if you're new, quickly click on the subscribe button and join the community, and let's go to the chart right now and begin the analysis. This week from the 10th to 14th of June, this is what we are going to look at. First, we'll consider the GDP, PMI, inflation data, interest rate, unemployment rate, hedge fund sentiment, and notable events. Looking at GDP, you can see a drastic shift in American economy. America once had the GDP of 4.9, it fell to 3.4, and currently expectation is that the GDP is going to be around 1.3. And you know that whenever the GDP of a country is dropping, the value of their currency will drop alongside. Then in Switzerland, we saw an increase in their GDP from 0.3% to around 0.5. While in Japan, there was a drop in GDP from 0.1 down to minus 0.5%. Australia also had a drop in GDP from 0.3 to 0.1. And then New Zealand is still in recession, as you can see here, with a GDP of minus 0.1. That is almost 2 quarters of negative real GDP, as you can see. Then Canada, we saw an increase in GDP. In United Kingdom, we saw their GDP grew from minus 0.3 to around 0.6, showing the strength of the pound this period. And then you can see in the Eurozone, we also saw an increase in GDP. Looking at interest rate, some central bank have started their interest rate cut. The United States has not yet cut interest rate. We are still seeing interest rate at 5.5, although this week we are expecting the Fed fund rate, whatever they will come up with. Now, Switzerland had a cut in their interest rate from 1.7 to 1.5, while Japan saw their interest rate at 0.1 and it has remained there. This week we will know what the Bank of Japan is going to do. Then Australia, we have their interest rate at 4.3. No, they have not started the cut yet. New Zealand has not started cutting rate. Canada has started cutting rate from 5.0 to 4.75%. United Kingdom has not started cutting rate, while the Eurozone had their first rate cut the past week. So now, looking at manufacturing PMI, the PMI data is very important to us as forex traders because it gives you an idea of what GDP will be doing in the coming period. And when you see the PMI data above 50, it shows that the economy is expected to expand. And when it is below 50, you are seeing a contraction. So with this, you can see that the United States has their manufacturing PMI grow from 5.3 to around 5.4. This data is from the IHS market data. Now you are seeing Switzerland, they are still having a contractionary economy, although their purchasing managers index grew from 41.4 to 46.4, while Japan experienced a slight contraction. Australia is still in a contractionary outlook, having their PMI data below 50. And then the same thing with New Zealand in a contraction, Canada in a contraction. The Great Britain grew from 49.1 to around 51.2. So there is expectation of expansion in the United Kingdom. The Eurozone is still in a contractionary outlook, although there was a slight increase from 45.7 to 47.3. And now this is the service PMI as well. You can see there was increase in the United States service sector, a slight decrease in Japan, a decrease in Australia, New Zealand, and then we saw the service sector in Canada increase. Then in Great Britain, it dropped slightly above 50%. And then the Eurozone, you can see their service sector is still above. When it comes to inflation, you know that most of the central bank like their inflation reading to be around 2%. So whenever the inflation reading is above 2%, central bank will do whatever they can do in their power to bring inflation back to 2%. But what we are seeing here, if the inflation is above 2% and is dropping back towards that 2% mark, the central bank will normally watch more data. If the data is showing that inflation will come back naturally, they will not be forced to hike rates. What you are seeing here in the United States, inflation dropped slightly from 3.8 to around 3.4. Although this week we will be looking at the CPI data as well. We will be observing to know what the US economy will be like. While Switzerland, their inflation level is below 2%, but is growing towards that 2% mark, which is around 1.4. Then Japan, their inflation dropped from 2.6 to around 2.5. You are seeing Australia having a slight increase in inflation from 3.5 to around 3.6. And New Zealand has been recording a drop in inflation from the peak of 5.6 3 months ago to around 4.0 currently. And then you are seeing Canada, their inflation level is slightly above 2%. Then Great Britain, this is very good. As you can see, the inflation is coming down markedly towards the 2% mark. And then you are seeing the Eurozone as well. This data here is also for Nigeria. I used to track Nigerian inflation level as well. If you look at unemployment in the United States, grew to around 4%. While in Switzerland, there was a slight growth in unemployment rate. The same thing in Japan, the same thing in Australia, New Zealand. Canada has had a slight increase in their unemployment rate. Great Britain had a slight increase as well, while there was a little drop in unemployment rate in the Eurozone from 6.5. When you are doing fundamental analysis, what we are looking for are divergences. What I mean is that you will be looking at those economies that are cutting rate versus those that are not cutting yet. So now the economies that are clearly cutting rate at the moment are Canada, Switzerland, and the Eurozone. And guys, if you have not joined the Weldds Forex Academy, you are missing out. There is an opportunity for you to join us today. Check the description of this video. You will see a WhatsApp link and a WhatsApp phone number. Send me a message. It is going to expose you to a lot of things you need to know as a trader, both fundamentals, technical, and deep analysis. Send me a message today and see you in the academy. So now, this is hedge fund sentiment. I used to track the positions of hedge fund and see their overall positioning. And you can see here that hedge fund for a long period of time now, for months, they have been selling the US dollar. And they added to their sell positions on the US dollar. You can see it here. They are selling the Swiss with a net short of around 14.4%. Then you can see that they reduce their positions in the Japanese economy. And then looking at Australian dollar, they reduce their position from minus 6.7 to around minus 5.7. Then they are buying the New Zealand dollar. You see they are selling Canadian dollar as well. For Great Britain, Great British pound, you can see they added to their buy positions on the Great Britain pound and they increased their holding of the euro. When you look at this kind of data, they are selling the US massively, selling Japanese yen, selling Canadian dollar, although for Canada they reduce their positions, all right? And for Australian dollar, they are net short. The ones that are strong, according to the hedge fund sentiment, you are looking at New Zealand, Great Britain, and the Eurozone. So looking at this kind of data, you can see that the US economy is something we should be careful of trading. This week, on June 12th, we will be watching out for the UK GDP month on month. Then we'll also watch out for US Consumer Price Index news, the Federal Open Market Committee statement, and federal funds rate. Then the Bank of Canada Governor Wekulom will speak as well on Wednesday. So you need to pay attention to what happens on that Wednesday. Then Thursday, June 13, Australian unemployment rate and unemployment change data will be what will push the market. Then we'll be looking at US Producer Price Index. Then Friday, June 14, the Bank of Japan policy rate and policy statement will be what we need to pay attention. Then we need to see what is going to happen to the US University of Michigan Consumer Sentiment Index and inflation expectations. And if you go to the Bloomberg website, there are certain headline news that you need to pay attention. You are seeing here that Bank of Japan expected to weigh bond buying cuts as rate hike timing nears. So you need to visit the Bloomberg website and read up what that is all about. Then European Central Bank divergence from Fed would fuel inflation, Hallman says. So that is one of the major news. Then you can see here that Euro slumps as European politics raises market uncertainty. So when you are trading in the financial market, you know that uncertainties, when period of political instability, the currency is going to be affected. So the euro currency is going to face certain uncertainties due to politics in that region. If you are going to be trading the euro, you need to pay attention to the political uncertainty, all right? And then number two, the European Central Bank cutting down on their interest rate, making the currency to get weak as against the United States dollar as well. You need to put up all this data I've shown you and make your decisions as you begin to go to the technical analysis. Tomorrow I'll be posting some of my swing trades for the month of June. All right, it has been nice talking to you. See you tomorrow. God bless you.